last section, because so far, if you see, we've covered this whole aspect about generative AI applications, the future forward way, applications not only of the business function side, but industries. And also we took our approach how exactly the aspect of adoption should happen from an enterprise level. But one thing which is still missing is what we are covering in this session is ethics. The aspect of algorithms when on the fly go wrong, it can create a havoc. And that particular thing, what Bhaskar mentioned, it's like almost akin to a nuclear fission reaction. Anything going wrong can actually have a lot of bad impact. And for that, we have a trilogue out here, three gentlemen kind of a thing, because we felt, I think it's relevant to put this particular facet of theme into focus as well. We've got Avik Sarkar. He is a well-known researcher and a visiting faculty at Indian School of Business. We've got Muthu Chandra. He's the chief data scientist at Ascendian. And we've Anand Mahalingam. He's a VP data labs at HDFC Life. So three of these gentlemen will talk about the ethical aspects of generative AI. Over to you, gentlemen.
Hi all, thanks for joining this session, which is in need of the hour. Thanks Amir and Bhaskar for this opportunity. We all know ChatGPT, it is everywhere, people are discussing about it, a lot of hype about it, and people are interested to know more about it. And across the globe, everybody is trying to do something out of it. But at the same time, the power comes with some issues, right? So we are going to see like the ethical part of it, ethics in generative AI. When we are trying to do generative AI applications, what all the ethical issues can pop up, and then the discussion would be around that. So if you look at ChatGPT or any LLM models are trained using a lot of the text, open text, the content available in the internet. So it is not moderated, and it is a public content. So there is a high chance of having a biases and toxicity, right? So it is not moderated. So any content will come in, and then the large language models will learn from that. So there is a high chance of biases and toxicity. And there is a reason for now data leakage. People are worried about data leakage, because when you have a super model which gives you a very good output, people are quickly jumping into the sharing the content and trying to get some insight out of it. But at the same time, there is a high risk of your company data is getting leaked. There is a chance of getting leaked. So that is another big issue. And hallucinations. And sometimes the model gives you a more argumentally, more convincing answers, but it is completely 100% wrong. So developers call it as an hallucination effect. So there is a risk of hallucination effect. And again, as usual, we have, like any other AI models, we have here also high-level transparency and explainability issues. Because these models are trained on billions of parameters. So you find difficulty to say that now on what parameters and what attributes it has got trained, and what is the reference checks it has done, and based on that, the output is coming in. And then more importantly, the intellectual property, because it is an open data, and then we never know what kind of IP copyright violations have happened, and then that model got trained. And then so these are all the major points, and then more, I'm sure like there will be many more, but these are all some of the highlights, the ethical issues we are seeing in generative AI. So with that context, let us discuss today.
So thanks Anand, and thanks to 3AI for organizing such a topical event, because generative AI as we see in the current form, has only been there in the last 6 to 8 months. And in this short period, it has become tremendously popular. It's not just the AI community who is talking about it, it is business community. We even see relatives and people who have nothing to do with AI even talking about applications like ChatGPT, because this has become a very common buzzword, and there will be a lot of applications that will come around it. Businesses are creating tens and hundreds of applications on a daily basis on with these LLMs, and that will revolutionize the way businesses functions and we operate as humans. So it's a very good innovation to there, but we are in a very early stages of large language model and generative AI. And like any other technology, when you are in the early stages, there will be a lot of inhibitions and fears on what can go wrong and what can go right. And that has happened with all technology that you see the technological revolution. We have recently seen last month, Italy put a temporary ban on AI, ChatGPT, that was there on generative AI. And the way the European countries work is that one country does something and then all the other nations in the European Union follow that. That's the usual modus operandi in which the European Union function. They put one country to head a certain dialogue, and the others sort of agree to that, to a consensus around that. And if that happens, then we will see applications of, say, LLMs and generative AI being banned from a large continent, and other continents might also follow similar things, which will be a huge loss for businesses and mankind. So what are the issues that you're talking about? And as Anand correctly identified, the issues are that there is a lot of text which is there on the internet, as we know. They have been created by people for humans. That's the basic context. When I write a blog, I write a article, and I put it on the internet, even if it's for free, I put it for humans. I never assume that it will be read by a machine. So that's the first basic thing that is there. And the next thing comes is that the monetization out of it. I put it for free, and usually all copyright laws, other than a few open source licenses, tell that it is free for research or non-commercial use. But if you see a lot of these applications of generative AI, they are on a freemium model. You can use maybe for 10 days or say 100 points or certain thing, but after that it becomes paid. So where is the legality of that aspect of monetization on content that people has put for free? Then there is a lot of private information which is also there on the internet that has been shared in databases, private databases of government, private databases of companies, private information about celebrities and other people are there. So these are private information. So do they have the right to take this private information and form it as a part of the question answering system or the generative systems that are there? And the third aspect also that Anand touched upon is that if you leave out a few facts, like say when did India got independence, or when a very factual thing, there will be opinions on a particular aspects. So, and there are a lot of issues in which you will find people have opinionated views, and I think there are factual and there are opinionated views. When you see the opinionated views, which opinion do you take? Because there are documents on the internet that talks of opinion A, there are talks of opinion B, talks of opinion C. Now, generative AI can only respond on one of the opinions, and which opinion is something that we see happening on social media also, in the large social media platform, and it will even become more because people will trust that opinion. And then who takes the liability of that opinion that comes out of it? And these are the three major issues that I see are on generative AI, the broad issues. And then there is this aspects of fairness and bias which also come in, because when you're forming an opinion and say your opinion is primarily based on text and data from the US, that means people of India are not represented to a good extent as compared to the people of the US, because there are more English documents, as the generative AI is now trained on English, is trained on US, so certain geographies will be left out. So those are aspects which can lead to bias also in the system. So that's a more of an internal and technical aspect. But on the three aspects, they are this monetization, the privacy aspect, and the third one is on the liability of the answers. So these are some of the things that I see, and we are working on regulations. I think we are too early to form regulation, but I think there is some discussion going on there. But it will be nice to hear how businesses are looking at this aspect and what do businesses think about this.
Absolutely, Dr. Avik. Thanks for your inputs. Like, it's very impressive. What is that? Like, I see as part of the industry use cases is like I'll take two examples. See, one is on the healthcare side, and another one is on the banking side, right? So, as part of the healthcare side, ethical consideration in the healthcare industries are particularly significant due to the critical nature of the patient care and the potential consequences of AI decision making, right? So let me give you an example. Like, so for example, like the bias and fairness in diagnosis and treatment, right? The AI algorithms that are used in healthcare must be designed to minimize the bias in diagnosis and treatment recommendations. So the biased algorithms obviously result in diagnosis and treatment recommendations. Uh, Obviously, what happens, like the biased algorithms can result in an unequal access to the healthcare and mediognosis, and disproportionately like affecting like the specific group of people, right? So the regular monitoring and testing are like necessary as part of the generative AI to make sure your large language models are not biased. That is one thing that is very sensitive in the space of healthcare, right? The other one is like your continuity and equity of care. What is that being like provided to the end users, right? Like, so the AI must be deployed in a way that it ensures the continuity and equity of care. So the healthcare disparities should be considered and minimized, ensuring that AI is accessible and beneficial across different parties, populations, including undeserved communities, right? So when it comes to generative AI, right now, the current state, there is no self-healing or data-centric approach that exists in real scenario. Then what it leads to, like, obviously you have a garbage in, garbage out of your data, right? What is that data that you are using to um, get your generative AI to learn from the historical information? That is going to play a major role as part of your decisions, right? So this is what, like, I see as part of the healthcare. And when it comes to banking domain, the transparency and explainability, that is going to be the key factor that we need to consider as part of generative AI. So when it comes to ethical aspects, what if, like, my large language model, like, is not having enough transparency or explainability as part of the use cases that I'm looking at, right? So the banking sector has to look at, like, the way how it can provide clear explanations on how your large language models are, like, making the decisions, and, like, what are all the ethical policies that is being followed as part of your large language models, the design, and also, like, how it is, like, learning from the outcome, the inferences that it makes, and how it is being, like, connected back to your source data, right? And the next important factor is, like, the privacy and data protection. And we all know, like, there are cases where, like, the generative AI, we had, like, data privacy challenges, and there are scenarios like banks are handling the vast amounts of, like, personal and financial data, which is very crucial for any of the member as part of the banking process, right? So protecting customer privacy, and also, like, how it is all, like, connected to each other, the generative AI is capable of, like, understanding that, how we can make sure by using these ethical aspects, right? So these are the different aspects that the ethical AI is heavily influencing the generative AI. And obviously, like, it has to, like, uh, share the same space. At the same time, like, it has to be, like, working together to make the generative AI more successful in the business use case application. So Anand, like, in your opinion, like, you can share, like, what other things that you're seeing as part of this space, but this is what I see as part of healthcare and banking space, Anand.
Yeah. You are right, Muthu. So by looking at it, I think across organization, people are so much excited about it. One group of people, the technical developers, and then they see that no, earlier I may have to put so much effort to get an output. Now with a quick way, I can derive it using all the large language models. So that way they are really eager and then trying to look at a different department to see that now how I can do a POCs, what I can do with that. At the same time, the way how the hype has come and the kind of benefits the hype has come on the negative part also, that's what we are talking about. So that way, the people who are guarding that the data perspective, the CISOs and the governance teams, they are very careful and then trying to put up governance mechanism around it, and then guiding and telling the team saying that no, yeah, we understand, but let us take a complete overview about what is that we are doing, what is the data going in, where any data leakage. So I think there is a lot of discussions going between these two groups in any bigger organizations, and people are careful about it. I don't think they just trying to jump into the point. So these kind of discussions are happening, and I think any company trying to do generative AI, we need to be more sensible, more sensitive, hypersensitive towards it, because the being ethical, being responsible towards AI is from beginning, right? So whenever we do any predictive modeling or any computer vision or NLP or whatever it is, the responsible AI stuff is being there. So we need to continue doing that in more rigorous way. I think we can look at the technical side of it, societal side of it, and the legal side of it. Whether my model, whatever I'm building application using large language model, is an auditable. Can I look at the transparency, the technical side of it? Can I test it? Is it creating any biases? Transparency is there. So I think we need to continue to work on the existing framework of responsible AI, which has been there for many organizations. It has grown to a certain level, and then we need to build on top of it, saying that no, for generative AI specific, what are all the few more points which we need to add, so that this particular piece also handled very well, because all we are talking about is for the human good. So when we are talking, Muthu talked about on healthcare, and it can do wonders, right? So yeah, we can provide an expert knowledge to a junior doctor who has been trained on 25-30 years of experience. A peculiar case is coming in, which has been referred in somewhere other part of the globe. Uh, Otherwise, he or she will not have any references about that, no, and that particular symptoms and how that patient need to be treated. But maybe using this kind of model, which has been trained across all healthcare institutions across the globe, in a single click we can get the knowledge. But again, as usual, like AI and LLM also, we need to put our human judgment before taking that, but we get a lot of references. So the power is more. I think companies across the globe, they are trying to in this similar way, in these principles.
I think that is excellent. There, the way you mentioned that thing, the ecosystem that we are looking at are like different players. One is the companies which are developing the generative AI models or the LLMs, and there are businesses who are adapting it. Like say, if you're in a bank, as you at your work, your bank might be using it to serve customer queries or their responses to them. So there are different groups that are there. So when I think one of the solutions that the people who are creating this LLMs and generative AI models has to keep in mind that when they are looking and scraping all the documents or collecting the documents, they have to keep in mind what are the sort of norms of that website or the document that is there. I think, and keeping that in mind will also ensure a lot of those ethical aspects are taken care of. And also a techno-legal approach has to be taken. See, it is easy for computer programs to detect what is private information versus not. It's very easy to detect that these are names, these are possibly A's, these are phone numbers, and computer programs can do that very easily. And based on that, if you see that, don't take that as a part of your training. I think this is a principle and practice that you have to create there. That LLM developing companies have to form a consensus and then abide by that. Otherwise, what will happen? Governments will come and regulate that. And what is happening in Italy, just because out of say 1,000 documents, maybe five have contain some private data, for that the entire tool is banned. I think that is very unfortunate. But if they identify those five documents and reject them from the training corpus, I think that, and then there is a mechanism to audit it also. I think that will ensure that the governments and the citizens have trust in the entire system. And then the other thing is that providing references. Even if you have a point of view on a certain thing, if you share that my point of view is because I have read so and so document and I have this point of view, I think then you can pass on that liability. I'm not telling you can resolve the liability, but you can pass on the liability to the source, and the liability comes to the source. I will tell that, okay, I am telling this and this, and my understanding is based on book one or site one or site two. I think that can mitigate some of the issues, because I think otherwise it will be really foolish to kill the generative AI applications, because this is such a beautiful innovation that is there, but we are at a very early stage. So any thoughts?
Yeah, yes, Avik, you're absolutely right. Because of like here and there, like few mistakes that are happening because of the ethical aspects, like there are like very good things that are coming out of generative AI are like getting impacted, right? So, what is that like? I have seen in the actual business use cases that customer trying to implement is like there are three things that definitely we need to look at is like ethical first approach, right? Like it doesn't matter what use case you are taking it, like what data that you are consuming is
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
LLM is like data centric. Okay, then the second important factor that you need to consider is like, are you really considering the feedback of your LLM outcome, and then keep retraining so that it is up to date, right? So that is very important, Avik. Yeah, and yeah, Avik, like we are very close to the end of the session. Like, back
Yes,
to
yes.
you, Avik.
No,
Yeah.
I think it was a great discussion. I think we sort of summarized that there we on highlighting what the key ethical aspects are, looking from a business perspective, both from Muthu and from Anand, and then what the issues are, and also what can be the possible resolution. Because I think the ethical practices have to be adapted by these companies. Otherwise, this beautiful innovation will die. So I think that is a step that companies who are developing generative AI applications has to take a proactive step. Usually, regulations and all will be very reactive. Maybe they will come after 5 years, because governments are always behind. So I think companies who are developing this has to take a proactive approach to. I think that's a good. Thanks to both Anand, Muthu, and to 3i for organizing this. I think hand over to Samir and Bhaskar for to take the discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. A difficult theme because there are several open ended threads around ethicalness of generative AI. The whole genesis per se is open sourced in terms of the possibilities and putting guardrails, basket to the point what you were discussing, needs to be well cogitated, well mulled over. Otherwise, the real impact may not be seen. What's your view?
Yeah, absolutely agree, Samir. And in fact, very important points raised by the panelists here on issues which are probably techno-legal in nature.
Yeah.
The combination of what people put out there today, how that gets leveraged in the future for training any LLM or such technologies, where does the ownership lie? And there is no clear answer. This is, of course, governments have to play their part in clarifying some of these, but I'm sure sooner or later some of these will end up in courts as well, and it will be interesting to see how those decisions go.